problem among the millions of US citizens who are descendants of those immigrants. Hence, such an immigrant harassment campaign does not make sense in the US politics and is politically dangerous in the US in the future. Ever since World War II, at least, immigrants in America have increased their interest in creating immigrant pressure groups, which would affect positively the economic and political advancement of their countries of origin. The same will happen even more effectively in the future in view of the growth of those groups and the improvement of the status of those immigrant groups, their progressive assimilation within the US society, and the importance of effectiveness of political involvement in US politics. Hence, Trump administration anti-immigrant stance is politically wrong, if not suicidal, in American electoral politics in the long run, especially for the Republican Party. One has to remember the grand coalition of the FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt campaign in the 1930s, the results of remaking USA for 20 years with the alliance of the immigrants, blacks, and labor unions. It can easily be repeated against the GOP, the Republican Party, in the near future, with dynamic programs and leadership of the Democratic Party. It may be proper for this audience to recall the recent success of the Polish-American Congress in waging an aggressive and absolutely effective campaign in 1990 for the inclusion of Poland in the NATO. I am proud to have been the Vice President of the Polish-American Congress for Polish Affairs 1992 to 1998, enormously complicated and synchronized campaign to achieve our goal, Poland in NATO, has resulted in outstanding success of 80% for votes in US Senate against strong and effective opposition. We were biting our fingernails literally, hoping to get at least 2/3 of the votes, 66%, and we got 80%. And furthermore, we were officially asked by White House to unblock the White House telephone exchange because so many calls were coming from our supporters from all over the United States. Hence, the NATO membership, the Polish security blanket, was achieved largely through the sensible, well-organized and determined political action on behalf of the whole country, Poland, by the US citizens like myself, and some of them fifth generation, like Texas pro-Poland activists. One also has to remember that since at least World War II, USA is revealing previously unstated and undocumented role of the immigrants in US industry, labor, and other societal achievements. Dozens of PhD theses have been published. Hence, the role of immigrants in fighting for and building up USA is now better known and documented. Hence, the anti-immigrant Trump policy is a weird aberration based on fear, emotion, and untruth. It is obviously true that any large-scale immigration calls for strict security and vetting policy. But also it is equally true that if the immigrants are integrated into all societal activities, and because of it, their negative and disruptive actions are reduced to minimum. I will again take the liberty of using my own immigrant history as an example. Having been able to be fully integrated in the US society and educated at the University of Chicago, one of the best American universities, and later educating politically thousands of US students for 50 years, I was also functioning politically in behalf of the removal of the remaining vestiges of discrimination against the Mexicans and Mexican Americans in the US Southwest, without any potential barriers or negative comments, in spite of my accent and immigrant status. I was participating in the activities which were highly politically charged in Texas. Here, at the end of my presentation, I will take the liberty of quoting some excerpts from the recently published book on essays on tyranny, 20 Lessons from the 20th Century, by the eminent US historian of East Central Europe, Dr. Timothy Snyder, professor of history at the Yale University. He is an acclaimed author of Bloodlands, Europe between Hitler and Stalin, and Black Earth, Holocaust as History and Warning. Professor Snyder reminds us that, quote, In his 2016 campaign, the American President Donald Trump used the slogans "America First," end of quote, which was the name of the committee that sought to prevent the United States from opposing Nazi Germany. Also, that the President's strategic advisor promised policies that will be, quote, as exciting as 1930s, end of quote. And further on, Professor Snyder states, quote, the President is a nationalist, which is not at all the same thing as a patriot. A nationalist encourages us to be our worst, and then tells us that we are the best. A patriot, by contrast, wants the nation to live to its ideals, which means asking us to be our best selves. And end of quote. In his last lesson, number 20, Professor Snyder also states, quote, be as courageous as you can. If none of us is prepared to die for freedom, then all of us will die under tyranny. End of quote. Thank you.